The Rebirth of Greek and Roman Knowledge and Aesthetics through Paradise Lost by John Milton and Macbeth by William Shakespeare. In this video, I will be discussing the Greek and Roman influences on these stories and how that affected literature going forward. First, I will be discussing Paradise Lost, a story written in an epic format similar to the Iliad and the Odyssey by Greek poet Homer and the Aeneid by Roman poet Virgil. The first big influence of Greek and Roman culture is the fact that it is an epic poem. That was a very common poetry style in Greek and Roman culture. And the fact that it was made so modernly was obviously very influenced by those poets. However, when John Milton wrote this story, he took the Greco-Roman epic style that usually incorporated Greek or Roman myths depending on which place it was written in, and he switched it to Christian influence and cosmology to more accurately align with the story of Satan, which is being told. One thing that could automatically make you assume it's an epic is just the sheer size of the story. It was originally 10 books long, and it was revised to 12 books long, which is already very long, and it had over 10,000 lines of poetry. While this isn't as long as something like the Iliad, which was around 16,000, 17,000 lines, or is agreed to be about that long, it's much closer to the Odyssey's about 12,000 lines and the Aeneid's 10,000 lines. Another thing that makes it very obviously an epic is at the very beginning, the narrator invokes the Muses, or there's an invocation of the Muses. Starting on line 6 of book 1, it says, "Sing, heavenly muse, that on the secret top of Oreb or of Sinai didn't inspire that shepherd who first taught the chosen seed." Like mentioned previously, in these lines Milton references the epic characteristic of invoking the Muses. It replaces the pagan muses with the Christian ideas that fit the story better, almost like he's reimagining the epic writing style. Another characteristic that's featured are epic similes. Epic similes are large, detailed, poetic similes that usually occur over like 3 or 4 lines. For example, starting in line 196 of book 1, it says, "In bulk as huge as whom the fables name of monstrous size, Titanian or earthborn that warred on Jove, Briareus or Typhon, whom the den by ancient Tarsus held." In these lines, Milton is using an epic simile to compare Satan's size to the size of the Titans that were the parents of the gods in Greek mythology. However, I feel that he's also using this simile to compare Satan to the Titans that fought against their father Uranus and Jove, which is also interpreted to be Zeus or Jupiter, which is probably done to show that they're both enemies of some sort of divine power and subject to their punishment. It continues to go on to name drop Briareus and Typhon, I think I'm saying that right, who were both sons of Uranus, so Titans in Greek mythology, connecting them further to Satan because they're against their father. Another epic simile comes right after that in line 200, saying, "Or that sea beast Leviathan, which God of all his works created hugest that swim the ocean stream, him happily slumbering on the Norway foam, the pilot of some small night foundered skiff, deeming some island oft as seamen tell, with fixed anchor in the scaly rind, moors by the side under the lee, while night invests the sea and wished morn delays." This simile again compares the size of Satan to a Leviathan, which is some sort of dragon thing, I believe described by Isaiah in the Bible. But it then goes on to reference a Scandinavian, Icelandic, Nordic type folktale about a large whale or sea monster, usually known as a Hafgufa, or in Greek versions of it, it's called Nespidicolone, which is a large turtle. Basically, it's a large sea-dwelling thing that is so big that there are sailors that try to land on it because they think it's an island. They anchor to it, and then the monster goes underwater, dragging the ship with him and drowning the sailors and presumably eating them. This is most likely added to foreshadow Satan's deceptive and treacherous nature that isn't as apparent at this point in the story, using the comparison to show that Satan betrays people that trust him and causes their destruction. Another element of an epic poem that's present is the long journey that is commonly seen, especially in the Odyssey and the Aeneid. A textual example of this would be in Book 2, line 432 to 433. It says, "Long is the way and hard that out of hell leads up to the light." In these lines, it's referencing the journey from hell back to heaven that had been discussed in the debate leading up to this point in Book 2. This journey would go on to mirror Odysseus's and Aeneas's long, treacherous journey, but instead of ending in an earthly place, it ends in a more celestial, biblical place in the form of heaven. Another Greek influence is that Satan is made to be a hero, specifically a tragic hero, similar to Achilles or Aeneas. Satan's character resembles the heroic qualities that are often seen in Greek and Roman heroes, like charisma, courage, leadership qualities, stuff like that. In line 106 to 109 of Book 1, Satan says, "All is not lost. The unconquerable will and the study of revenge and mortal hate, and courage never to submit or yield, and what is else not to be overcome." In these lines, Satan uses language that is similar to that of Greek and Roman heroes and generals, showing his defiant, grand, and charismatic qualities. Later, in line 263, he says, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven." In this very famous line, Satan shows a very rebellious, prideful quality that is very in line with the values of heroes in Greek and Roman poetry. After showing these generally positive Greek and Roman hero qualities, Milton goes on to subvert it and make it obvious that you can still have all these qualities as a character and still be very morally flawed. This seems to be done to show that the qualities valued in a Greek and Roman hero are not the end-all be-all of the character. This can be seen when Satan privately admits, "Which way I fly is hell, myself am hell," in Book 4, line 75. In this line, you can see Satan revealing that he's not as good of a guy as one might believe based off of what has happened so far. And while this reveal isn't that big of a shock to people in the modern age, considering most people know that Satan is a really good guy, and we were all kind of at least skeptical about him and his character, to someone that doesn't know anything about him, this reveal might be a little bit bigger, considering everything the seen so far, I think, has generally showed that he's a charismatic, good leader, and maybe at most a little bit rebellious, but not, the devil. Again, all of this is done to show that the Greco-Roman hero traits that are generally considered good aren't the thing that make a character like a morally good, because you can have all the good traits of the Greco-Roman hero, and then you can be an awful person or character like Satan is. That is to say, Milton kind of brings it in here to take it, look at it, and then challenge the character of a Greek or Roman hero. Next, we have Macbeth, another very well-known play by William Shakespeare. The main character of this story is Macbeth, a great man, noble by birth, that is a tragic hero similar to Satan in Paradise Lost. The thing that makes him a tragic hero is a fatal flaw, which is an idea that was actually created by a Greek philosopher, Aristotle, which he coined the term as hamartia, but it's basically just a flaw that causes a downfall. For Macbeth, this flaw was his ambition. In Act 1, Scene 7, and in lines 25 through 27, he says, "I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only faulting ambition." A fatal flaw is a very common symptom of a tragic hero in Greek and Roman myths, and it can be seen in many characters, including Oedipus, Cronus, Agamemnon, Achilles, and many others. And like many of these heroes, Macbeth ends up falling due to his own ambition and hubris. Another Greek and Roman influence in Macbeth is the idea of fate driving the story, and the ongoing theme of fate versus free will being present. In Act 1, Scene 3, line 53, one of three witches says, "All hail Macbeth, thou shalt alt be king hereafter." This witch is one of three witches that tells prophecies to Macbeth throughout the story that seem to resemble the Sisters of Fate, or the Moirai in Greek myth, the Perkai in Roman myth, or the Norns in Norse myth. In Act 1, Scene 3, line 157 and 159, after hearing this prophecy, Macbeth goes on to ask, "If chance will have me king, why, chance may, crown me without my stir." In this line, Macbeth is kind of debating with himself whether this fate could change or if free will is kind of a real concept. The prophecy and the internal conflict that it causes Macbeth is kind of the driving force in this story, as well as his ambition to keep the prophecy true. The internal conflict caused by a prophecy is a very common thing to occur in Greek and Roman myths, with characters like Cronus and Oedipus having these internal conflicts because of a prophecy. Though I would like to note, in many cases, it is a character trying to prevent a prophecy from happening rather than hoping it will happen. And their downfall is usually because that prophecy happens, not because they do anything they can to get that prophecy to become true, like Macbeth does. Another Greek and Roman influence I saw were allusions to Greek and Roman culture and myth. For example, in Act 2, Scene 1, line 66 to 67, Macbeth says, "With Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design." Well, this small quote doesn't fully explain the context. I couldn't really get the whole quote because it was pretty long. But basically, Macbeth is comparing himself to Tarquin, who is a Roman tyrant. This was most likely done to foreshadow Macbeth's future as he tries to become king and becomes a tyrant and then eventually causes his death. Both of these have a large effect on modern media and very much brought to the forefront of media at the time the ideas of Greek and Roman stories. For example, tragic heroes weren't very common character archetypes at the time, and they brought that to the spotlight of the time. I believe that if these stories and similar stories had not come out at the time, we would not be seeing tragic heroes that we see in media today, which includes characters like Jay Gatsby, Anakin Skywalker, and even like Satoru Gojo, and debatably in a different way, Sukuru Geto from Jujutsu Kaisen, which is kind of crazy. They also brought Greek and Roman myths into an influential spotlight, and I believe without that being done, not as many people would know about them, and then we wouldn't have that knowledge as commonly available. I believe that also kind of went on to affect things like the creation of series like Percy Jackson or the God of War series that are completely based on myth from those areas. And if these two stories and similar ones at the time hadn't been made, I feel like a lot of the Greek and Roman aesthetics and influences wouldn't have been as popular as they are today and might never have gotten a spotlight that these stories gave them. Okay, that's my video essay. Sorry, the graphics are a little bit low budget. Starting to run out of time. The final's coming up. Yeah. Thank you for watching.